Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yamunadira Vanachari Yamunadira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Yasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Nasta Prayesu Abhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Tadarajastamo Bhavo Kalmaloba Dayaschaye Chitataranavidam Stitvam Sattve Prasidati Evam Prasana Manaso Bhagavat Bhakti Yogataha Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate Vidyate Hridaya Grantis Chidyante Sarvasamsaya Shiyante Chasya Karamani Justa Evat Manishware Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantaksto Bhadrani Vidunati Suhidyatam Vidyate Hridaya Grantis Chidyante Sarvasamsaya Shiyante Chasya Karamani Justa Evat Manishware. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we are reading again from the Dig Darshani Tikya of Sanatan Goswami, which is the commentary on the Damodarastakam. And so far we have covered 4 of the verses. Today we're going to go to verse number 5. 4 and 5 are related because they both are talking about meditating on Krishna. So the fourth one is more about meditating on the, as it says here, longing for the inner darshan within the heart. And it's called longing for the inner darshan. It's the best goal. And so Satyavata Muni says that he's not interested in any other boon or any other blessing that can be attained by doing devotional service or attaining Vaikuntha in the presence of Lord Narayana, or using the 9 processes of Krishna consciousness to get other types of boons or blessings. He basically says, Kimanyai, I'm not interested in any type of blessing. However, the real purpose of the devotee is to meditate in his heart on the beautiful, let's say, darshan of Krishna. And he's longing for this inner darshan within the heart. And he considers this the best goal of all. So, because that verse says, O Lord Damodar, I first of all offer my obeisances to the brilliantly effulgent rope which binds your belly. I then offer my obeisances to your belly, which is the abode of the entire universe. I humbly bow down to your most beloved Srimati Rani, Radharani, and I offer all obeisances to you, the Supreme Lord, who displays unlimited mercy. I'm sorry. That was not the one. The fourth verse says, O Lord, although you are able to give all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray to you for the boon of impersonal liberation, nor the highest liberation of eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor any other boon or blessing, which may be obtained by executing the 9 processes of bhakti. O Lord, I simply wish that this form of yours as Bala Gopala in Vrindavan may ever be manifest in my heart, for what is the use to me of any other boon besides this? So he wants to meditate on the beautiful form of Krishna, the beautiful body of Krishna. Now, when we come to the next verse, it becomes even more specific, because it says, Idam te mukam bojam adyanta nilar. In other words, he says, O Lord, your lotus face, which is encircled by locks of soft black hair tinged with red, is kissed again and again by Mother Yasoda, and your lips are reddish like the bimba fruit. May this beautiful vision of your lotus face be ever manifest to my heart. Thousands and thousands of other benedictions are of no use to me. So, when he's talking about the bimba fruit, what happened to the bimba fruit? This is the bimba fruit. You can buy them in the Indian grocery store. But when it's ripe, it's perfectly red, very bright red. So, usually this is cooked in Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu, they have different names for it. In Telugu, it's bimbaka. In Tamil, it's donda. In Tamil, it's kovai. And donda is what language? Telugu. Okay, Telugu. Oh, okay, bimbaka. Okay. And then in Hindi, it's kunduru. Kunduru. And in English, it's ivy gourd. So, bimba is known in many different cultures. So what does this all mean? So Sanatana Goswami's commentary on this follows. Basically, he's talking about not only meditating on the body of Krishna internally in his heart, but he wants to meditate deeply on the divine lotus face of Krishna. So this longing to see, he says, Sri Mukha, your divine lotus face, that is Parama Manohar, supremely enchanting. And it begins in this verse by idam te. Sometime, while one is meditating deeply within and perceives such indescribable beauty and splendor, that is what is revealed in this verse. So Sri Satyabhama Muni prays for Sri Krishna's, let's say, in the previous verse, his whole body as Balagopal in Vrindavan to be manifest forever in his heart. But in this verse, he wants to behold the Lord's supremely enchanting lotus face. And he's going to explain in depth what are those things about the lotus face of Krishna that is so extremely enchanting and the cause of ecstatic transcendental bliss. So, he begins this verse with the longing to see the Lord's lotus face, which is extremely enchanting. This is called Parama Manohara. And it's beginning with idam te, this enchanting lotus face of the Lord. And he says here that what is revealed in this verse are the things that are actually intoxicating almost to Satyavrata Muni, and he says what is revealed in this verse. Krishna's face is prapula kamala kara. It resembles a fully blossomed lotus flower. So this is like the indescribable beauty and splendor of the Lord's lotus face, or Mukham Bojam. That's his face. And the face is Prapula Kamala Lakara. It resembles a fully blossomed lotus flower. And then his face is the remover of all kinds of distress. So one is no longer, because everyone in the material world is feeling some kind of distress. So Nikila Santapahari, his face is the remover of all kinds of distress. So what are the distress? Well, first of all, there's birth, death, old age, and disease. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi, Dukkha Dosana Darshanan. And in the 13th chapter, the verses 8 to 12, it explains the different points of knowledge. And in the 9th verse, it says that there is an evilness of the forced birth, old age, disease, and death. So it's very necessary to understand that there's something wrong. It says dosa darsha. So it says janma mrityu jara vyadi. There's repeated birth, death, old age, and disease. Dukkha darshana, dukkha dosha darshana. It is full of misery, and there's dosha. It's evil. Nobody really wants to go through the stress of birth, old age, disease, and death. Only crazy people would want this. Anyone who has any amount of sensitivity and feelings would see this as a total imposition on our desire to live and to be happy, and therefore there's something evil about it. It's not normal that these things are happening, just like sickness is not normal. Old age, where your youth is wiped out and you're full of pains and the body is gradually falling apart, it's an evil thing. And then eventually death, in which again it's an evil thing. Your life is snuffed out by force. So unless we realize this, we won't do anything to solve this problem. And this problem is miserable. It's horrifying, in fact, for most people. And so here it's saying that Nikhila Santapahari, his face is the remover of all kinds of distress. So life is full of distress, but if you want to get rid of it and have a chance to be happy and a chance to go back to Godhead, here is the solution. Fix the mind on Krishna, not only his transcendental body, but especially his enchanting face. And this is called Paramananda Rasa Maya. It is pervaded with the supreme mellows of pure bliss. Now it's going to explain why. What are those details of his face? Well, only a person who's fully meditating on the face of Krishna would be able to describe all the details that produce this feeling of ecstasy in the contemplation. And this is called, we're talking now about meditating deeply within the mind or heart and on the divine lotus face of Krishna, which is it's full of splendorous light and beauty. Okay, so therefore it says that lotus face, Manasi Muhur Avirastam, may be revealed again and again within my mind. So this is the desire of the devotee, but it's not an empty desire in which there's no striving for it. When you have some desire but you don't strive to realize the desire, it's an empty desire. This is full of vigor and full of enthusiasm and full of a dire need, say, to be able to visualize Krishna's beautiful face in one's heart, always. And now he's going to go into all the details of why it is so beautiful. Therefore, he says, what does that lotus face look like? So it is surrounded by, surrounded means vritam. It is surrounded by curling hair. So, Aityanta Nila Vritam Kuntalai Stigna Raktais. That which is encircled, it is encircled by locks of soft black hair tinged with red. So, we see in the material world, oftentimes, if a lady has jet black hair, they will use henna on the hair, and it gives it tints of red. Say. So that reddish tints on the black is very, very attractive. And Muslim men, when they have gray hair and a gray beard, they use henna and makes it like a flashy red color. But that doesn't look so inviting. But when a woman has very dark black hair and she has these light streaks of reddish in it, color, it's very attractive. So Sri Satyavrata Muni, who's giving the commentary, he continues, your lotus face is encircled, vritam in Sanskrit, by curls of extremely black, adyanta nilar, the black is, and the nilar is color, soft stigna hair, kuntalai, that have a reddish raktais, the Sanskrit word, luster. So, he continues. These are the qualities that, or the details of why he's so enchanted by the beautiful face of Krishna. Now, that's not all. There's a lot more. It says that Krishna's face is, well, let's go back to his hair. He has curly hair. It's very dark blue, avyakta nilar, or dark blue or nearly black, and it's glossy, and it's tinged with reddish color, okay? And then, just as a lotus flower is surrounded with hovering bumblebees, the Lord's face, lotus face, is encircled with curly locks that bounce around when he moves. So we see also nowadays women they go get their to their hairdresser. A man goes to get his hair cut. A woman goes to get her hair dressed. Now, what's the difference between hairdressing and hair cutting? There's a big difference. Hairdressing means, and there's thousands of ways to do it, but Krishna is also naturally has his hair dressed in curls. See, so women, they have to get these rollers, and they roll up the hair, and then they sort of pin it down, and then if you look at them when they're doing this, it looks like they have like goosebumps or some kind of cancer on their head, right? But then later on, when they open up those curly things that are held with a pin, their hair is curly, right? And then they like to throw their head like this, and you see the curls falling around. And sometimes when they're talking, the curls fall in front of one eye, and they like to go like this and knock the curl back. And so that is a normal thing nowadays. That's one of the tricks women use to be attractive today. There are many others also. But with Krishna, it's not a trick. It's natural, right? He doesn't have to get his hair dressed in a salon. And by the way, it costs a lot of money to do that. It can cost $150, $200, sometimes $300 for every session just to get all these things done to your hair and to your eyelashes and so forth. And then they go to the plastic surgeon, and he gives all kinds. He can put needles into your lips. Then you have these big thick lips. So and then they do things with the eyelashes. So they do the Botox also. So there's many tricks that they use. Krishna doesn't need to have any tricks. He is naturally, exquisitely beautiful. So it says these curly locks bounce around whenever he moves, and then it says that it looks something like a lotus flower with beautiful petals, and encircled by locks of soft black hair tinged with red. And Satyamrata Muni continues, said, your lotus face is encircled by curls of extremely black, soft hair that is reddish. And then it suggests that a lotus flower is surrounded with hovering humblebees. Similarly, the Lord's face is encircled with these curly locks that bounce around whenever he moves. Go ahead, next one. So, not only that, but Chagopya Muhuschumbitam, Krishna's face is kissed again and again by Mother Yasoda. And Mother Yasoda is also a gopi. She's a cowherd lady. And she milks the cows and turns the cow milk into butter and yogurt and ghee, and uses those things to make wonderful sweets to feed Krishna. So she's a real cowherd girl. Nowadays, if you call someone a cowherd girl or a cowboy, they usually are either riding on a rodeo on a bull, or they're riding a horse and herding cows to take them to a slaughterhouse so that they can be killed. So that's not really a badge of honor to be a cow herder boy or girl. But a real cow herd girl is one who loves cows, embraces them, takes care of them, feeds them, brushes them, washes them, milks them, and takes the milk and turns it into wonderful ghee and milk and yogurt and making sweets and so many things. So the cowherd girl in the spiritual world is a glorious person. There's no killing involved. There's no suffering of the animals involved. On the contrary, it's taking care with love and devotion. Krishna's cows and taking the marvelous, most nutritious food, milk, and transforming it into all these other wonderful substances like ghee and yogurt and butter, and eventually making wonderful sweets out of them. So here we see that Mother Yasoda not only is the only gopi who is kissing Krishna's face, but also Srimati Radharani is also kissing Krishna's face. And this is something that is marvelous. Like when a mother kisses the face of her baby, it's a sign of extreme love and extreme states of emotion. So imagine that the baby is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the mother is Yasodamaya, or Krishna's eternal consort Radharani. So that type of a kiss is something that would throw someone into an ecstatic state of bliss, to see that and to feel the emotion that's behind it, or that's part of it. So the word muhus in Sanskrit is relative to the word gopya, meaning is kissed again and again by a gopi. And another meaning is regarding the sage's vision of Sri Krishna's lotus face manifestation. In his vision is sada, from a previous verse, sadame manasya virastam, which means that it's going on. It's the attainment of millions of other types of benedictions. There are, in other words, finally, the lotus face is especially described thus: Bimba vad raktadaram, he whose lips are cherry red like a bimba fruit. And so I said, this is the bimba fruit here. It's not ripe yet. When it's ripe, it's perfectly red. So there's no lipstick or anything like that. You have natural fruits, natural flowers, and that are in Vrindavan, Vrindavan in the spiritual world, and even Vrindavan in the material world, when Krishna was present 5,000 years ago. So everything is pristine and fresh and full of color and light and wonderful scents, or perfumes, natural perfumes. So it says here that Krishna's face is being kissed repeatedly by the supremely fortunate gopi Mama Manasi. And he's perceiving this in his mind. And avirasta, may it manifest even only once. That's enough to keep me eternally in an ecstatic state. And what about if I see it all the time in my heart? Or else the word sada, always, found in a previous verse, which carries over to its definitive conclusion in the present verse, thereby indicating, may it always be manifest. This intention can also be accepted. In other words, what is said here, that may this always be manifest in my heart or in my mind. This amazing scene of Mother Yasoda kissing the face of Krishna and resembling the kiss, just like when a lady has lipstick and she kisses someone on the cheek, you see the lips on the cheek. You see the imprint of the lips on the cheek in red. I had this one friend once, who was a devotee, who was a little bit eccentric, and one time when he came home after working, his wife noticed that he had lipstick stain on his cheek that looks like somebody kissed him, So she went into she became inquisitive. Who kissed you? And he said, he didn't want to say some girlfriend kissed him, right? So he said, oh, well, I was abducted by aliens. So have you ever heard of alien abduction? Yeah, sometimes people claim they've been abducted by aliens, and they're put in a spaceship, and then the aliens did something to them. So he said he was abducted by aliens, and one of the alien women kissed him on his cheek, and that's where this red stain came from. Well, that, of course, is complete nonsense. But in this case, in Krishna's case, his mother is kissing him, and there's a reddish tinge to the impression, and the whole thing is a source of ecstasy for the observer. And so this is the desire of the pure devotee. He wants to always be able to visualize this amazing scene of Mother's Yasoda, and you see her right here. There she is, Yasoda Mai, and there's baby Krishna, and she's tying him up, right? But she also at times, and Krishna has this dark curly hair, and sometimes she will kiss him. And so, Manasya Virastam Alam Lakshalabai, may this beautiful vision of your lotus face be ever manifest in my heart. Thousands and thousands of other benedictions are of no use to me. In other words, if the Lord is going to give an asirbat or a benediction to his genuine devotee, the devotee is not saying, give me liberation, or give me wealth, or give me fame, or give me money, or give me this, or give me that. He's saying, I'm not interested in any of those things. Whatever can be obtained by merging into the Brahma Jyoti, or going back to Vaikuntha in the company of Lord Narayana, or obtaining benedictions by following the 9 principles of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atman, Nivedanam. He said, I'm not interested in any of these things. The only thing I'm interested in is to be able to visualize this scene of Mother Yasoda embracing her child, Krishna, and tying him up, and this thing and that thing. He says, may this always be manifest in my heart. And it says, the attainment of millions and millions of other types of benedictions, they are of no use to me. So Satyavrata Muni's rejection of millions of other attainments is the same as the one presented in the previous verse, where first he wants to meditate always on the body of Krishna. Now it's specific, not only on the whole body of Krishna, but he wants to meditate specifically on the face of Krishna. So, therefore, it is said about Lakshalabhai, the attainment of millions and millions of other types of benedictions, they are of no use to me whatsoever. This is the meaning. This is most definitely the message that is conveyed in the 5th verse of the Damodarastakam. In other words, a devotee is not pleased by any of the things that please other people. People want to have knowledge. People want to have fame. People want to have riches. People want to have family with a lot of children that are all high performers. And people want also to get liberation on heavenly planets, where the duration of life is longer and the sense gratification is more intense. But here, the devotee is saying, I'm not interested in any of these things. The only thing I want to do is fix this vision in my heart of Krishna's face being kissed by his mother Yasoda, and always meditating on this beautiful scene that is purifying of the heart. There's nothing mundane about it in any way. So that's the message of the 5th verse of the Damodarastakam. And now we'll go on to the 6th verse. Namo Deva Damodarantam Vishnu Prasiddha Prabhu Dukha Jalabdi Magnam Kripa Dristi Vistiyati Dinam Bhatanu Grihane Samam Ajnam Edi Akshi Dristyai. So this is saying, O Supreme Godhead, O Krishna, I offer my obeisances unto you, O Damodara. Damodara means that he was tied up with this rope of love of Mother Yasoda. O Ananta, that means he's infinitely great. O Vishnu meaning he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. O Master, he's the Supreme Guru of everyone. O my Lord, he's the Supreme Controller of everything. Be pleased upon me. By showering your glance of mercy on me, deliver this poor ignorant fool who is immersed in an ocean of worldly sorrows and become visible to my eyes. Well, this is a very significant verse because it reveals certain things about who we are. In the material world, our soul is covered by a temporary material body that's always changing. It goes from birth to youth to maturity to middle age and to old age and eventually death. So during that time, we may be under the impression that I am this body, and this body may be incidentally American or Indian or Latino or whatever, and we identify with the body as being ourself and with the nationality or ethnicity or family identity. And all these things are actually false. At no time, see, when you talk about an illusion is something that was never true, but it's believed to be true. But it was never true at any time. So at any time, it was never true that I am this body. But I can be fooled into believing I am this body by parents, by school teachers, by philosophers, by scientists, and so forth, by doctors. And therefore, I can be put in a complete state of ignorance and throughout all life be under this false impression. And just like in World War II, the British people became convinced that Hitler was an evil person, and they wanted to go to war. And was Hitler an evil person? Yes, he was. But was it necessary to go to war? Well, it seemed to be necessary. And and the same thing happened in World War I. The British men were very eager to go to war against Germany in World War I. But as soon as they went and invaded France, and not invaded, but landed in France and fighting the Germans, it became one of the most vicious and painful wars in the history of the world. And people were stuck, men were stuck in their trenches for years in freezing weather. Many people died not of bullets, but of the cold and starvation and so forth. It was horrible. So that enthusiasm to go to war became later on a complete fiasco and a horrible experience for everyone, the Germans as well as the French and the English. So they went to war again only 30 years after the previous war, and again it became a horrible therefore it caused the suffering of hundreds and millions of people also, because the war was spread all over the world in World War II, and hundreds and millions of people lost their homes, lost everything, lost their lives, and it was a great transfer of population, and it was horrible. So here, material life is horrible because we are forced to be born, forced to get old, forced to get sick, and forced to die. These are the real problems of the human being. The real problems are not political or social or economic or racial or this or that. The real problems of all living entities is birth, old age, disease, and death. So how are we going to solve this problem? So here, in the Damodarastakam in prayer 6, the devotee is basically pleading to the Lord, or Krishna, for his mercy. And he characterizes himself as a poor, ignorant fool who's immersed in an ocean of worldly sorrows. So the only thing that he sees that could solve his suffering and relieve him of his suffering is to be able to visualize with his eyes, not simply in his heart, like the previous verse, but with his eyes, the transcendental form of the Lord. And so here, it's the next, it begins with Namo Deva. So Namo is offering one's obeisances or homage to the Lord. Deva means the Supreme Lord. And from his prayers, feelings of spontaneous love arise instantly within Sri Satyavrata Muni's heart. And he now expresses his intense longing to see Lord Krishna or Bhagavan directly. Shakshat Darshana means direct darshana, directly seeing the Lord. So, by the potency of prayer, feelings of spontaneous love arise, and one especially craves to have the direct vision of the Lord. So, but in this intense enthusiasm, sometimes people forget things because they're so enthused, or they're very afraid, or else they're very enthused and happy and in great expectation of more happiness. So here also in his prayers, the feelings of spontaneous love arise instantly and in the heart of Satyavrata Muni, and he now expresses his intense longing to see Krishna, not only in his heart, but see him directly. And he should have used the word tubhyam, which means you, my dear Lord, but he left it out because of the tremendous expectation he was having. Just like people sometimes in a tremendous state of bliss, they forget things, or in a tremendous state of fear, they forget things, or they forget to finish a sentence, or they leave something unfinished because they're has so much anticipation to see the Lord. So, but he left out the word tubhyam, means I want to see you, my dear Lord. So in the mood of being in a personal presence of the Lord, the word tubhyam is neglected because of the over excessive expectation and need. Is rushing out of a love for the Lord. So, in this regard, when we talk about sakshat darshana, vision in proximity of the Lord, or vision of the Lord in close proximity, or direct vision of the Lord, there's only one way that one can attain such a parama sadhana, or supreme method to attain the direct darshan of the Lord, and that is by the chanting of the holy names of the Lord with love and devotion. So when you love someone, you speak about them all the time. Like, for example, let's say your favorite candidate for president is Barack Obama, or Mr. Trump, or Mr. Biden. So I remember when Barack Obama was running for election in 2008, women would faint when he'd talk, when he'd give a speech. They would faint out of, they were so overwhelmed by his stature and his way of speaking and his physical look, and they were like overwhelmed with this type of expectation of what's going to happen. That America is going to become paradise under his rule, and so sometimes women would faint when he'd come out and start speaking. Well, the same thing happens with movie stars, sometimes with very famous people. I remember in 1950s and 60s, Elvis Presley, whenever he started singing, and strumming his guitar, women would faint. And they start screaming and they start crying and they go into states of pseudo ecstasy. But here, it's the real thing. So, after fixing the beauty of Krishna in the mind, one then offers sorrowful prayers by way of Sri Nama Kirtana, as in the verse beginning with Namo. In the text of the Mullah sloka, such as the 6th verse, the Mullah means it's the quintessential or most important, very important verse, and it's the verse in which the whole thing is based on. The excitement of love causes the reciter to neglect all feelings of awe and reverence. So in Vaikuntha, one approaches Narayana with awe and reverence. But in Goloka, so there are two main sections of the spiritual world. There's Vaikuntha and Goloka. In Goloka, all that awe and reverence goes away, and there's this extreme excitement and spontaneous love and devotion for Lord Krishna. So all the rules and regulations that are followed in Vaikuntha are put aside now, and for this intimacy of love with the Lord, and in which that awe and reverence, the feelings of awe and reverence would be a hindrance to the expression of spontaneous love for the Lord. And so, therefore, this mood of being in the personal presence of the Lord, certain things have been neglected, like the word tubhyam. It says here, from his prayers, feelings of spontaneous love arise instantly within Sri Satyvrata Muni's heart, and he now expresses his intense longing to see Sri Bhagavan directly. And the Muni intended to use the word tubhyam unto you, but he left it out due to the prema, or love, arising within his heart. In the mood of being in the personal presence of the Lord, the word tubhyam is neglected. So this is due to the extreme excitement and blissful expectation of the devotee. We're talking about extreme states of love, and this is what's going on in the spiritual world, and it can be also experienced in the material world in a pure way through chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in ecstatic kirtan, where one feels ecstasy simply repeating the name of the Lord and seeing the form of the Lord and the deity. And many times, I remember one time I took a group of devotees from Paris to London to see Srila Prabhupada, and there was this one lady, she had just been initiated by Prabhupada. Her name was Santanu Devi Dasi. And after the long trip to get from Paris to London, and then finally coming to the temple, and then entering the temple room where Prabhupada was leading kirtan, and all the devotees were ecstatically chanting, Santanu Devi walks in, and in less than 30 seconds, she passed out completely. She completely fainted in feelings of ecstatic, feelings of emotion for Prabhupada. Just she was seeing him for the first time. She had already been initiated, but she was seeing him for the first time. And in this temple room, which was filled with devotees, they were in a state of ecstasy. They were all chanting. They were jumping up and down and dancing. And Prabhupada was leading the kirtan. It was too much for her. She fainted. See? So these are things that happen in real life. You don't have to go back to the spiritual world to experiencing them. And it always happens during the ecstatic chanting and dancing in the kirtan. The Nama Sankirtan. In that state of ecstasy also, the names of the Lord that both have very significant meaning are called out as O Damodar, O Krishna, who was tied by the belly by his mother out of love, and O Ananta, who is infinitely glorious and infinitely varied qualities and infinitely unending source of bliss and knowledge and so forth. And O Vishnu, Vishnu is considered to be the supreme personality of God in the sense that he is worshipped with awe and reverence, right? And that actually hides, that actually is to hide, in a sense, the intimate proximity of coming to Krishna. Krishna's pastimes with his devotees is something confidential. Very few people can understand it. And if they artificially try to understand it without going through a full process of purification, they will commit sinful acts in the name of meditating on Krishna's intimate pastimes with the gopis and Radharani. So there's something confidential about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan with Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj and the gopis and the gopas, the cowherd boys. One should not think that they can approach the subject matter of Krishna's intimate relationships in a cheap way. One should hear every day Srimad Bhagavatam and go through the first 9 volumes of the Bhagavatam. There are 18,000 verses in the Bhagavatam, so you would have to go through about 10,000 verses before you would be ready to hear and understand Krishna's intimate pastimes in the spiritual world, in Vrindavan, Goloka, because it is only meant for people who are already purified of the material desires for sense gratification, for fame, for riches, for all kinds of different accolades. And they're completely free from material identification. They identify themselves as completely surrendered to the Lord. So it takes time to come to a position like that. And but today you have so many people who cheaply want to jump to that position and make a farce out of it as if it's some kind of mundane thing. You have, over time in India, the whole majesty and glorious spiritual nature of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan has been bastardized or made into some type of a cheap thing, and people misunderstand it completely. So, therefore, one must be patient in spiritual life. One must be willing to surrender to a bona fide spiritual master and shiksha and diksha gurus, instructing gurus and initiating guru, and hear the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam spoken on a daily basis for the rest of their life, right up to the moment of death, so that they can purify the mind and the senses of the mundane and mostly sordid sensuality that people engage in, and become, develop what's called transcendental qualities. There are 26 transcendental qualities of a pure devotee, such as patience, and tolerance, and compassion, and genuine affection, and so forth. So it takes time to purify things that have entered into our mind and as misconceptions. So when people think of love, they usually think of physical sex. And when they think of God, they think, I can become God also if I do some yoga or this thing or that thing. So there are a lot of misconceptions in the world today, and a lot of people who purposely are misleading others for their own benefit. And therefore, many people feel violated by such cheaters. And then, and because the cheaters are so-called gurus or priests or ministers, they become angry and don't want to have anything to do with religion, and usually they retreat into what they call their own spirituality, which is another type of misconception. And eventually, at the moment of death, they don't really get liberated from the cycle of birth and death, and they have to continue again, take birth again, and who knows what kind of body they're going to get in the next life. So here, there's a lot of information about this very, very intimate Parama Darshan, or directly seeing Krishna. In this verse, it's beginning with Namo Deva. The devotee submits himself to the Lord through sorrowful prayers in the form of Sri Nama Sankirtan. So what does that mean exactly, sorrowful prayers? Well, usually people who come to Krishna, it's out of distress and suffering. So if everything's going good, the 401k is there, one has a new Tesla and is going to go to vacation in Mexico, and there's a lot of material success, they're not interested in Krishna at all, or in God. They might pay some lip service, yes. They might go to church on the weekend or go to the temple every once in a while, Janmashtami, Ram Navami, and so forth. But they're not really interested in surrendering their life and soul to the Lord. So, therefore, there are examples of people who do surrender their life and soul to the Lord, like Prahlad Maharaj, and Dhruva Maharaj, and Parikshit Maharaj, and Mirabai, and many, many devotees throughout life has surrendered completely to the Lord, and they became exceptional persons without being moguls or without being big CEOs or movie stars or basketball players or anything. They were just ordinary people. I remember I once met this Indian grandmother. She was a pure devotee. Her whole day she was meditating on Krishna. She was cooking for her family. She was offering the food. She would fast on fast days. She would chant always Hare Krishna. She was just an ordinary grandmother, right? But she was a pure devotee. And how did she become like that? Well, when you're grandmother and you have, like, say, 5 or 10 kids, and then they have their children also, and you're surrounded by all these family members, it's hard. It's hard for a woman to have so many children, raise the children, and also take care of her husband, and then deal with all the tragedies that happen in life. So she was seasoned by her experiences in the material world, and she realized the only thing that is going to save her is Krishna. And she actually understood that. And therefore, every spare minute she had, it was to serve Krishna. And she learned the trick, or the great art of dovetailing every one of her activities into Krishna consciousness. The cooking, the eating, the cleaning, the sewing, the washing the dishes, everything was dovetailed into Krishna consciousness. And there are different ways of dovetailing. The number one way is to always chant the holy name. Number 2 way is to always offer things to Krishna before you eat. And number 3 way is don't go anywhere where the topic of Krishna is not going to be the main subject. Only associate with genuine devotees. And if you do go out into the public, you go out in order to spread Krishna consciousness by giving prasadam to people, or books about Krishna, and so forth. So she was in that mood, and this is just an ordinary grandmother, but she imbibed. She somehow or other learned all these things by associating with gurus and associating with other devotees, and she became 100% Krishna conscious 24 hours a day. So that's what's possible when you understand what is the real face of the material world. So there was this one philosopher, Soren Kierkegaard. He's a Norwegian, or he was a Scandinavian gentleman. He's a very well-known philosopher. There's a picture of him looking out of a window at night in a state of horror. So he said that when you actually see the raw form of the material world, it's horrifying, because it's full of birth, old age, disease, and death. He said that's the real face of the material world. It's not actually a nice place. Even what is considered good is bad, because it's all misleading. Say, and he portrayed the universe as a very horrible place. Now, if you think the universe is a horrible place, it sounds like a negative, very negative thing. And therefore, how can you do anything positive if you have such a concept in the material universe and life in the material world? Well, it's realistic. However, even in the material world, even in hell, one can become Krishna conscious. And when you become Krishna conscious, then you can tolerate all the downside of the material world and be fully engaged in positive activity based on love and devotion for Krishna and sharing that with other people. So ultimately, that's the difference between a positive or negative vision of the world. The positive vision is that God is omnipresent in the material world. Everything is made out of the energy of Krishna. And Krishna is present in everything, in every atom, and in the heart of every living entity as Paramatma. So one's relationship with Krishna can be rekindled, and you come to these same realizations that are being expressed in the Damodarastakam of constantly seeing the Lord, or seeing the connection to the Lord. So, for example, when you see a tree, when a devotee sees a tree, he doesn't exactly see the tree. He sees that there's a living entity. That tree is actually a living entity because it's growing and it's transforming energies, like a lemon tree. A lemon tree transforms things that it gets from the sun and things that it gets from the earth and transforms it into a lemon. That lemon is part of the tree, but you can pick it from the tree and use it because it's full of vitamin C. So the devotee sees that there's a living entity, and that living entity is able to take energy from the sun, take energy from the earth, and transform it into this wonderful fruit that gives life to people in the form of vitamin C. So he doesn't see a dog with 4 legs and a tail. He sees a living entity in the body of the dog, and he helps the dog by giving it some prasad or prasadam, so that the dog and chants into the dog's ear, Hare Krishna. So the dog looks like it doesn't understand, but actually it's benefited by such actions. And when he sees the ant, he pushes 1 grain of sugar that's been offered to Krishna in the trajectory of the ant, and he says Hare Krishna loudly to the ant. So in this way, he's relating to all living entities in a very positive way. And because he has a positive vision that although there's all this misery in the material world, it doesn't affect him or her, because they are dovetailing everything into the service of Krishna. This is called yoga koshalam, the art of work. So this is basically what's being said here. It says, prayers are usually made according to the sequence in which one is prayed. As such, it is not appropriate in this case to first mention the boon or the blessing that they want. That is being requested due to its nature of being the topmost of rarely attained benedictions. So what are you talking about in this verse? Well, the devotee, he wants to see the Lord constantly and in real time. He doesn't want it to be an internal meditation now. He wants it to be in real time. So that is the highest benediction one can receive. Just like Bhisma Pitamaha, at the moment of death, Krishna was standing right next to him, and he saw the Lord and left his body. Or you see Jatayu, when Jatayu was dying, the Lord Rama was holding him in his arms and looking directly at him, and Jatayu was looking directly at the Lord. That is the highest benediction that one can receive in this world, the personal presence of the Lord that is embracing his devotee and leading him back to Godhead. So, therefore, the glory of attaining the direct vision of the Lord, or the Sakshat Darshana, within the mind, is explained very logically by the personal associates of the Lord in the form of Shri Bhagavat Prasada. In other words, the best prasad is Krishna's presence in one's heart, in one's mind, and even in one's vision. And Arjuna, when he speaks to Krishna, he says, Nasta moha smritir labha tat prasadat mayuchita. He said, now, Krishna, all my moha is finished, and this is your best prasad. Yeah. O achyuta, O infallible one. Yeah. Nasta moha smritir labha tat prasadat mayuchita. O Krishna, O achyuta, this is your best prasad. This is your best benediction to me. You have taken away all my illusions. You've made me understand who I really am. I'm your eternal servant, and I'm completely surrendered to you. And the rest of my life, I'll be engaged always in your service. So this is the top prasad that one can receive, or benediction. So this is what's being said here. Now it says that. Go on the next one. So only a person who's sensitive feels their immersion in the ocean of worldly sorrows in the material world. See, just like if you were supposed to stand like a tree in one place, well, you might be able to do it for an hour or two, but if it had to be forever, you would be complaining all the time, because, forever means one day it's freezing cold, next day it could be scorching hot, one day it's raining all day. We see that here. So if you have to stand in one place and you can't move and there's no shelter, and you're standing like a tree, you can see that it's constant suffering. And therefore, how can this tree stand there? Well, because the consciousness of the living entity in the tree is very, very, very curtailed. Therefore, they can suffer without feeling it. Just like when you go to the dentist says, well, we can do this with Novocaine, or we can put you to sleep, or you can just grin and bear it. So the person said, no. Just shoot some Novocaine into the tooth you're going to drill. So he puts some Novocaine into your gums near that tooth, and it gets numb. And now you're hearing him, zzz on your tooth, and you can feel there's something burning, right? You can smell it. Something is burning, but you're not feeling it so much. You can feel it going zzz like that, which is a horrible sound. But if you didn't have the Novocaine, you'd be screaming and trying to get away from the dentist, see? So the same thing is there for the tree. The tree is a living entity like you and me, but it's in a body that highly restricts its consciousness. So therefore, with that very low consciousness, the tree can be continually suffering and not complain about it. But if you were standing there like the tree, you'd start complaining right away. So what's going on here? How come I can't move? It's getting cold, and it's raining all the time, and people are coming trying to carve, I love Lucy or something on me, So we see that a human being is highly sensitive because it has these highly developed senses, so it can feel in a very acute way suffering. See? So here, but some people, they dull the suffering by taking intoxicants like alcohol. I've seen alcoholics freezing and not complaining about it. As long as they got their bottle of whiskey, they can stand it. I've seen people take LSD and put their hand on a hot plate and not move the hand for about 40, 50 seconds, and their skin is burning, right? And then they finally realize their hand is burning, right? Why? Because they're drugged. Their senses have been dulled, see? So in order to withstand the suffering in life, many people resort to dulling the senses by taking intoxicants such as marijuana, such as cocaine and heroin and benzodiazepines and all these different intoxicants to dull the senses so they can deal with all the suffering that they're going through, right? But that doesn't solve a problem. That only prolongs the problem. So here, the devotee is feeling the pains of suffering, and he's praying to the Lord, because the agony of repeated birth and death, or the torment of not seeing Krishna, is too much for the devotee. So it's resulting in feelings of ocean-like infinite desolation. The suffering is called dukkha, and the feeling of desolation, being alone and nobody cares for me, that's called jalabdi. And jalam, meaning one is in a state of illusion and deception. And abdihi, there's an ocean that's extremely vast of suffering that one is faltering in. So, and magnam, one feels submerged, one feels suffocated and submerged in this ocean of suffering. So these are all things that are leading the devotee to plead with the Lord, please help me, and please let me be able to see you always, and then I can deal with this suffering. I won't be disturbed by it anymore, because I can have your darshan. So go ahead. So then it says, Kripa dristi ristyati dinam batanu, by showering your glance of mercy upon me. Ati dinam means tormented by such incessant misery, I'm suffering greatly, because I'm without the association of devotees, and without your darshan, I'm a dead man. I have no idea how to alleviate such incessant suffering. Alas, please shower. This time of day I get all kinds of phone calls. So I have no idea how to alleviate this incessant suffering. Please shower your own mercy upon me with your compassionate glance. So please, bata in Sanskrit, shower, vristya, your own mercy upon me with your compassionate glance, kripa dristi. So this is an amazing verse. It shows the real condition of the living entity in the material world, and believe me, everyone is in this condition, from Elon Musk all the way down to the drunkard in the street. Everyone is in this position of suffering, birth, old age, disease, and death. They feel suffocated by it. They are overwhelmed by the ultimate horror of dying and having serious diseases and so forth, having human relationship problems, and feeling things like hatred and lust and anger and greed and madness and illusion and so forth, and envy. So they want to put an end to it. But when one realizes that you can put an end to it only by coming closer to God, by coming so close that you can actually see him and see his loving glance of mercy. And in this way, it says, the devotional kirtan of the Lord's names used to address him at the beginning of the sloka. So the word Deva indicates his divine form, O Lord of divine beauty. This beauty is the cause for desiring his darshan. The addressing Krishna as Damodara it means that he is glorified for his excellence of Bhaktavatsala, or his affection for his devotees, up to the point of allowing them to bind him around his waist, as Mother Yasoda has done. Therefore, I can only be qualified by bhakti to see him, by engaging in devotional service. This is the only way I'll be able to have his glance of mercy on me, and I'll be able to see him with my own eyes. But Krishna has no limits of his mercy. Therefore, he's called Ananta, and he will certainly shower his glance of mercy and thus favor me. And the devotee says, Achintya Ananta Adbhuta Mahashakti Yukta. Oh, you who are endowed with inconceivable, limitless, astonishingly grand potency. Therefore, you who cannot be perceived by the senses can only become visible to my eyes by dint of this same inconceivable Shakti of yours. And therefore, Krishna is addressed as Isha. He is the Parama Svatantra, or who is supremely independent and is supremely powerful. So Krishna can do something that no one else can do. He can favor even the unfit souls, the people who don't deserve to know the Lord, the people who don't deserve to go back to Godhead. But Krishna can favor them. No one else can do this. And moreover, Krishna is called Sarva Vyapaka, you who are all-pervading, and you who are fond of entering into Vrindavana's secluded caves and bower cottages. Playing like this indicates it's not difficult for Krishna to come before one's eyes. He does not have to labor hard to come from a distance. So in other words, the devotee is, in a sense, pleading with the Lord, please come and help me. Please come to me. I can't come to you, I'm too weak, but you can come to me. And please pick me up from this ocean of suffering and embrace me and glance upon me with your mercy. I am at the end of my wits. There's no other solution than you, my dear Lord. So this is a genuine prayer of a person who has tried everything and failed, and now realizes there's one thing they haven't tried, and that is to get the mercy of the Lord and to bask in the mercy of the Lord for the rest of their life. So they're not going to forsake the Lord anymore. They're going to always keep the Lord as a cherished part of their heart, as their intimate friend, benefactor, and supreme deity of worship, or supreme worshipful deity. So this is a very important. It's why it's called the Mullah Mantra. Mullah, it's the essential mantra of the Damodarastakam. So this is the understanding of the sixth verse of the Damodarastakam. So the devotee wants to be revived completely and delivered from the ocean, from this ocean of misery, and by being uplifted by the Lord's mercy. And the only way is if the Lord is always visible to the Lord, so to the devotee. So now, because of Krishna's transcendental powers, he is visible. We have the deity right here of Krishna. This is non-different than Krishna. So if you actually want to see God, you just come to the temple on a regular basis. That was the life of traditional India. Every day the people would go, before going to work in the morning, they would go to the temple and get blessing from Krishna and have his darshan, and let Krishna see them. Let Krishna have darshan of them. Oh, you have come again? You are bowing down? You chanted already your rounds? You have taken some prasadam? Now you're going to go and work and think of me all day long and offer the result of your work to me. Yes, I bless you that you can always remember me also. So that's what happens. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. If you hear about Krishna and you repeat what you heard and you chant the holy names of the Lord repeatedly, then you'll be able to remember Krishna. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. Smaranam means remembering. And Padasevaman, then you'll serve the lotus feet of the Lord. And Archanam, you will worship the Lord, deity worship. Vandanam, you'll pray to the Lord. Sakyam, you'll be friends with the Lord. And then Atma Nivedanam, you'll surrender everything to the Lord. So this is the process of devotional service, but not to attain something material, to obtain the darshan of the Lord always, whether you're in the material world or the spiritual. It doesn't matter. As long as you have the darshan of the Lord, then you will be able to tolerate any situation in life. So that's, but you have to feel the weight of the misery in the material world in order to say, okay, that's it. I'm not going to be fooled anymore. I'm not going to waste any more time. And here I'm going to read something from a lecture of Srila Prabhupada that encapsulates this whole general theme. And Prabhupada says in a lecture on June 17th, 1972 in Los Angeles, on Srimad Bhagavatam verses, 2nd canto, and the 3rd chapter, 20th and 21st verse, he says, so we can understand things as they are if we receive the message of Urukrama, or Krishna, who performs miraculous deeds. If you give oral reception to the activities of Krishna, in other words, if you hear Srimad Bhagavatam on a regular basis, right up to the moment of death, every day, he says, therefore, you should not waste a moment, even with nonsense talkings. You have got so many books. Either chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare, or read our books, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Discuss amongst yourselves. Don't waste your time by so-called dramas or plays or movies or internet or this or that. It's simply a waste of time. Don't waste your time in that way. If you have got an inclination to enjoy some drama, then you should take a hint how that drama should be written or played. Don't manufacture. You are not so expert that you can manufacture things. That is illegal. Just like we do not read any rascals' books. They are manufacturing so many ideas. We read Bhagavatam, authorized. We read Srimad Bhagavad Gita, authorized. We read Brahma Samhita, not rascals' books. What these rascals can write, what can they write? Anyway, they're imperfect. So don't waste your time. Simply always give oral reception, meaning listen to the message of Krishna. Don't waste a single moment. This should be your life's policy. Avyarta kalatvam. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 23.18-19. This is the verse. Rupa Goswami advises, an advanced devotee should always look whether my time is wasted. Avyarta kalatvam means never waste a second. Vyarta means useless. So avyarta means use your time very preciously in the service of Krishna and hearing about Krishna. That should be the target of the devotees. That whether I am wasting even a moment of my time, don't waste your time. Always pour in the activities of the Lord 24 hours a day. Kirtaniya Sadahari. You should be Sadahari, always chanting the names of the Lord, always hearing about the Lord, always serving the Lord. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says Sada. Sada means always, 24 hours. Otherwise, your ear is a snake hole, right? a snake sees a hole made by a rabbit or a rat. So it goes into that hole, eats the rat, and then starts to live in that hole itself. So your ears will be snake holes if you waste your time listening to nonsense things. So, otherwise, it is the snake hole. Similarly, Jivasati Dardurikeva Sutta. Dardurikeva, a frog's tongue. Ka karaka, ka karaka. No, don't be like the frog. Dardurikeva Sutta na Chopagayat Urugaya Gata Urugaya. Listen to the glorious activities of Krishna. This should be our motto of life, always listening to the glorious activities and pastimes of Krishna. And that way, we won't have the frog's tongue. The frog makes the sound, ka, 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 like that. And then the snake hears it and says, oh, here's my food. And he slithers toward the sound of the frog and eventually eats the frog. He said, that's what happens to people who talk nonsense. They just attract the snakes that'll come and consume them. But if you are always thinking and always talking about Krishna, then you will have the mercy and protection of the Lord. Devotional service of the Lord is rendered by all limbs or parts of the body. It is the transcendental dynamic force of the spirit soul. Therefore, a devotee is engaged 100% in the service of the Lord. One can engage in devotional service when the senses of the body are purified in relation with the Lord, and one can render service to the Lord with the help of all senses. As such, the senses and the action of the senses are to be considered as impure or materialistic as long as they are employed in sense gratification only. The purified senses are engaged not in sense gratification, but in the service of the Lord in toto, completely. The Lord is the supreme with all senses, and the servitor, who is part and parcel of the Lord, also has the same senses. Service of the Lord is the completely purified use of the senses, as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord imparted instructions with full senses, and Arjuna received them with full senses. And thus, there was a perfect exchange of sensible and logical understanding between the master and the disciple. Spiritual understanding is nothing like an electrical charge from the master to the disciple, as it is foolishly claimed by some propaganda mongers. Everything is full of sense and logic, and the exchange of views between the master and the disciple is possible when the reception is submissive and real only. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that one should receive the teaching of Lord Chaitanya with intellect and full senses, so that one can logically understand the great mission of the Lord. Chaitanya Dayara Kata Karaha Vichara. The exact language is there. That Chaitanya Charitamrita writer, Kaviraj Goswami, says, you put your logic about the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. I request you consider. Don't accept it blindly. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Daya Karaha Vichara. But if you intelligently deliberate on the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Daya Kara Vichara Vichara Karile Chitte Bhabe Chamatkara, you will feel wonderful. If you accept it by systematic deliberation about the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, then you will feel that the Lord's mercy is wonderful. So this is real Krishna consciousness. When Lord Chaitanya came as the most munificent, the most generous, the most, merciful incarnation of Krishna, and he freely gave love of Krishna to everyone, even people that don't deserve it. Right? He said, please chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. What is this mantra saying? It is saying, please Radharani, O merciful manifestation of Krishna's internal energy of love. O Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, please protect me so I can always remain your servant. This is the meaning of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. You're not asking for money. You're not asking for anything material. You're asking, please, protect me so I can always remain in your service. So if you pray like this fervently and honestly and with emotion, Krishna will definitely protect you so that you can always engage in Krishna consciousness. He'll give you an intelligence by which you can do this at all times and in all places, and then you're liberated, even in this world. So it says, Iha yasir hare dasya karmana manasajira akila swapyavasta su jivan mukta sa uchyate. You become jivan mukta even in this world, like Prahlad Maharaj, like Narada Muni, like Vyasadeva. They're all liberated souls in the material world, like Arjuna also, because they're uniquely engaged and intelligently engaged in service of Krishna by dovetailing everything to the service of Krishna. So they never go anywhere, they never say anything, they never do anything without it being connected to Krishna. That's called dovetailing. Everything is connected to Krishna. So this temple, in this temple, you walk inside, everything in the temple is connected to Krishna, right? And therefore, Krishna is the cynosure, the center of attention for everyone who comes here. And that's the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement, to focus our attention uniquely on Krishna and pleasing Krishna through Guru's instructions, Shiksha and Diksha Guru's instructions. So if we do this, our life becomes spiritual. And we become Jivan Mukta, even in the material world, a liberated soul, even in the material world, because nothing will affect us because of our complete immersion in service to the Lord. So this is basically what is being said also in the 6th verse of the Damodarastakam. Don't waste 1 second of your life, because even if you have billions of dollars, you cannot buy 1 second back. You cannot buy it back. As soon as 1 second goes by, it's lost forever. So therefore, the one thing we have is a little bit of time. So the little bit of time we have, we should use it in Krishna consciousness and not waste it. Say, use it or lose it. So when a person approaches death, they plead to the doctor, "Doctor, give me another couple of years. I haven't done this, I haven't done that." Huh? You're 78 years old, you didn't have time? You had 78 years to do all your things, and you're saying you need another 3 years? That is nonsense. So we don't know how much time we have. Therefore, we should use every second that we have in the service of the Lord. And if you don't know how to do that, you just come and ask, and we'll teach you this art of work, or yoga koshalam, the art of work, by which you can dovetail every one of your activities into Krishna's service. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So then tomorrow we'll finish, huh? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So there are only 8 mantras, but look, we've been speaking for almost a month now, and there's 8 mantras. Are there any questions? So this is a bimbo fruit. So I'll give it back to you. You can buy it in the Indian store. Haribo. Thank you. Oh, yes. Even what? Yes. Yes. Okay, you want to know how to remember Krishna even at work, right? When you're overwhelmed with all the nonsense that's going on, right? Well, there's 2 ways. One is you can preach about Krishna, or 2 is you use the result of your work to preach about Krishna. So if you're working in order to please Krishna, then you're always thinking about Krishna, because you want to use the result in Krishna's service. But if you're always thinking, oh, I'm going to make so much today and tomorrow and next week, and I'm going to use it to go on a vacation and buy another car and buy another scarf and buy a new refrigerator and get another house, and well, then you're not using anything in Krishna's service. You're just working for your own material pleasures But if you say, well, I'm going to make this money, and we have to build a new temple, and we have to get another food truck, and we have to do this, and we have to do that, and I'm going to bring some more flowers to the deities and everything. So usually in India, the natural thing was every time people would come to the temple, they'd bring something with them to offer to the Lord, right? And the Lord would offer back his mercy in the form of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, in the form of Krishna Prasadam, Krishna Katha, Krishna Kirtan, Krishna Seva. See, he's offering back also and giving all these chances to come closer and closer to him through devotional service. So if the temple in your house and in the temple here is the center of your focus, and your purpose for working is to maintain your family in a decent way, but at the same time, everything in excess to that minimalist maintenance should be used in the service of Krishna. Minimalist maintenance means that you don't overindulge in eating, sleeping, and mating and defending. You try and limit those things to a respectable level, and that'll leave plenty of excess money and time for the service of Krishna. If that's the way you plan your life, see. So therefore, everything you do will be dovetailed to Krishna's service if Krishna is the goal of your work and your thoughts. See. And if you split it, you say, well, this part is for me, and this part is for Krishna. Well, then you split it, right? And then some people say, well, let me put a little bit more on this part here for me, you know. And pretty soon, there was once a fox, and two rabbits were arguing over some food. It was some type of a sweet cake. So the fox came and said, hey, hold it now. Wait a minute here. You don't want to argue like this. You guys are brothers. You know, you're both rabbits. They said, well, who are you? I said, I'm a fox, but don't be afraid of me. You know, I give a lot of advice. I'm an influencer. I influence people to do the right thing. So they said, oh, well, what do you want? What do you want? Why are you saying something to us? So while you guys are arguing, now let me help you to overcome your arguing. And they said, okay. So he said, now look, you want to eat this cake, but it's a little bit lopsided. I see that. So in order to cut it in half, we would have to make it the right size. So let me take off this piece here, so it'll be exactly right size. So he cuts off a piece and eats it. And he said, okay, now we'll cut it in half. Oh, my God, I think I took a little too much off. Let me take a little bit over here and make it even. So he takes a little bit over there and eats it. You know, the two rabbits are looking like this. And he said, well, now we'll cut. Oh, my God, I did take a little too much of that. Okay, so let me cut a little bit here and make it even so you each get an even amount. So eventually there's no cake left, and then fox goes away, and the rabbits get nothing. See? So this is what's going on in the material world all the time. You have the foxes and you have the rabbits. Or you have the cheaters and you have the cheated. And the cheaters are expert in cheating the cheated out of everything they have until you have nothing left. So this is what's going on today in the material world. And people are, they get cheated by stockbrokers, they get cheated by each other, they get cheated by the government. The governments are the greatest pickpockets in the whole world. And they can do it legally. They put their hand in your pocket and take your money away, say, or your property or whatever. So anyway, if we are working to please Krishna with the guidance of bona fide Shiksha and Diksha gurus and associating with genuine devotees, then you can balance your life in such a way that you're no longer affected by the nonsense in the material world, because you are dedicating everything you do to the service of Krishna. That is the secret. Now, to learn how to dedicate everything you do in Krishna's service, well, I just gave you one hint. You can do it by direct preaching, or you can do it by using the result of your hard work to serve the Lord. So, therefore, your preoccupation in your mind is always, how am I going to use this in Krishna's service? That's my goal. So it's not depriving yourself of necessities, but you don't live an excessive life, or overindulgence in material things, but you live on a very, what's called minimalist level. So more people have died by overeating than by undereating. More people have died by overindulgence than minimizing their indulgences. See, so best thing to do is to ask advice how you can keep focused on the principle of dovetailing everything in Krishna's service, and that's called Yoga Koshalam, the art of work. We all have to work, but there's an art of work, and there's the disaster of work. The disaster is working in a selfish way and always being in trouble, and the art of work is working in such a way that Krishna is always blessing you by protecting you, giving you intelligence to make the right decisions, so you always remain in Krishna consciousness throughout this whole escapade of life. Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Ki Jai.